Hey everybody, what's up? Fuller here. Thanks so much for checking out the channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to build just a simple multi-track player inside of Metasounds. I've had a lot of people actually ask me how to handle multiple stems of audio, so I just wanted to film this video. It's actually a lot easier than you think, but I just want to show you how to do it. So let's jump on in. So first things first, I've got a few stems for drums, bass, and some strings in here. All of these stems are at the same tempo. That's important to know. And so here's what we're going to do. We're going to create a Metasound here. We're going to right click Metasound source. We're going to call this MS Multitrack. And let's open this, double click this. We have a blank Metasound graph. We're going to get rid of the unfinished. And here's what we want to do. We want to convert this Metasound to stereo. Clicking on Metasound and going over to stereo. Now we've got a left and a right channel. And we're going to use 4 stems. So what I want to do is I want to pull in 4 wave players, stereo wave players. We'll go 1 and we'll just copy this. There's 2, 3, 4. So we're making a wave player for each stem that we have. And then what we're going to do is we need to merge all these waves together. So we're going to add a 4-channel mixer. So however many stems you have, that's how many channels you need. We're going to hook this up to the output, left and right. And then we're going to hook up each of the wave players to a channel on the mixer. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Oops, put that one in the wrong one. Let's go with 3 and 4. All right, so now we have all 4 of these wave players going into this mixer. Now what I want to do is I want to create some inputs for this mixer to just control the volume. So we'll go 1, 2. We're just dragging out here, and we're calling this promote to graph input. So what this is going to do is this is going to create our Metasound inputs that we can actually adjust the volume levels for, and you'll see over here we've created these 4 inputs. So that's gain 0. Let's just call this drums because that's what we're going to put there. Let's call this one, we're going to rename this one bass. So now we got bass. Then we're going to call this one strings. And then this one we're going to call synth strings. Okay. Then, now what we want to do is we want to add the sound sources to each one of these. So basically consider each one of these wave players a channel, if you will. And so what we're looking at now is essentially in the audio world a 4-channel mixer. And we can balance the levels of each of these 4. So let's go in here and let's add drums. And we're just going to do our level 4 drums. There we go. And then we're going to add bass, our level 4 bass. And then we're going to go down here. We're going to add our strings. I'm just typing the name and it's giving me all my options here. We'll go strings 4. That's the one I want. And then here we're going to go analog strings level 4. So now what we want to do is we want to bring this input into all 4 of these because we want to essentially start all of these waves at the same time. Now all these waves are synced. Oh, actually, you know what else? I'm going to click loop because I want these to loop. And these are just, I think, 4-bar phrases, so nothing crazy, but just for demo purposes it'll work. Now what I need to do is I need to trigger all 4 of these at the same time. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to bring the on play to play on each of these waves. Now, what's different about the Metasound graph as opposed to the Blueprint graph is this is not like an execution code. So it's, you know, in Blueprint you can only execute one thing at a time. So you would have to sequentially start these. But in Metasound graphs, you're basically what you're doing is you're marking this trigger at a certain point in the audio render engine. So you can essentially put this on as many triggers as you want. So basically what you're telling the Metasound graph is to start every single one of these waves at the exact same frame of the audio render engine. So what this is going to allow us to do is going to allow us to sync up these audio files. So now let's play this and see what it sounds like. We should hear all of these. Cool. Now let's go over here and let's turn some stuff. Let's turn down the synth strings, the bass, and there's our drums. So now we have all four of these playing, and let's just turn up bass for a second. There we go. Let's turn up strings. And let's turn up the synth strings. Cool. And so now what we essentially have is a submixer. So we can balance our levels here to taste. And now we're basically giving ourselves dynamic control over these waves. So I can go in here and I can mix them. Maybe I want the drum softer. Bring this down a little bit. And then there we go. So now every time I start this meta sound, it's going to sync all of these together. And we have our multi-track wave playing meta sound. Now, here's the thing. These inputs are now available in our blueprint when we bring this meta sound in. So we can actually communicate to this meta sound with these naming these inputs by name. So we could use our blueprint world to control these levels. And let me show you what I'm going to do. So we're going to take this drum channel here, and I'm going to use actually here. Let's throw it into our world. So here's our world. We've got no audio. So what I want to do is I want to drag this multi-track player into our world right here. So now when I hit play, we hear our meta sound. And you'll notice all the stems are synced up, and they will stay synced up forever. So now we've got our killer music. But let's say I wanted to mute the drum track or let's say I wanted to mute the string track in the stem by the player stepping into a trigger. So let's do that. So we're going to add a trigger box here. We're going to add a trigger box, and we're going to put it right here. And I'm actually going to go down here, and I'm going to make it visible so that we can see it. So now, there's our trigger box, right? So what we're going to do is when I walk into this trigger box, here, let me resize it because I want it to be a little bit bigger. I'm going to resize this trigger box. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to program Unreal so that when my player walks into this trigger box, it sets a new mix level for the drum stem. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up the level blueprint because that's the easiest to show you. So we're going to open up the level blueprint. And then I've got a reference because I've got this selected. I've got this trigger box selected. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to add event on actor begin overlap trigger box. And just to prove that this works, I'm going to do a print string box trigger box works. Okay, so we're just testing this out, make sure the trigger box works, because sometimes you might have collision disabled or something like that. So when I walk over that, we should get a print string. There it is. Trigger box works over here on the left. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to get a reference also to our meta sound. So our meta sound, which is here, we're going to click on that, and we're going to also bring this into the level. So we're going to right click, and we're going to just create a reference. Now that we have a reference to this meta sound, what we can do is we can control those parameters of our multi-track player via the trigger box. Okay, so now what I want to do, when my character walks over this, I want to set this level of this input. So this is the drum level. I'm at 0.8 now. I want to set this to 0, which would essentially be muting it. I'm going to turn it all the way up for now. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go in here. How do we do that? We're going to drag off this, and we're going to set float parameter audio component. So what that's going to do, that's going to get our audio component from the meta sound, and it's going to allow us to set a float parameter. What float parameter? Well, we got to name it. We're going to tell it drums. So that's the name of our input, So we're going to call this drums. And when my player walks over this trigger box, we're going to print this string, and then we're going to adjust that gain level in drums to 0. Let's watch the magic happen. Here we go. There you go. Our drums are gone. Now, let's add one more function here. We're going to, when the player leaves, so we're going to add an event collision on actor end overlap. We're going to copy the same stuff here. And what we're going to do now is when I leave the trigger box, we're going to set the drums back to 1. So essentially that trigger box is becoming a mute box for this Metasound. So let's check it out. Here we go. So we got full band playing. Now we're going to walk in here. Drums muted. And then when I go out, the drums are unmuted. Pretty sweet. And that's how you build a multi-track player in Metasounds that you can access via Blueprint. Now, this isn't a very practical use situation because, I mean, you know, when are you going to, hey, if I walk into this room, I'm going to mute the drums. However, you can see the other uses for this. It doesn't have to be music. It could be sound effects. It could be ambience. It could be all sorts of different things. So you can use this technique to do whatever you need to do in your game. You could make a dynamic music game if you wanted to, but this is also very practical for, hey, when I walk into this box, we're gonna do something different to this Metasound based on these Metasound inputs. So anyways, this was a pretty short video, but I hope this was helpful, and I hope that it helps you as you go on your journey in Unreal Engine audio. Hey, if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next video.